My name is Denise Weeks, and I'm the Retirement Programs Manager here for Teacher Retirement. I am going to keep my camera off. It just makes it a little bit easier for the slides to advance. But first of all, what is TFFR? So TFFR stands for Teachers Fund for Retirement. It's a defined benefit plan for North Dakota public school educators. When you are eligible, it will provide you with a lifetime monthly benefit based on a formula, not your account value. TFFR is governed by North Dakota state statute, and the TFFR Board of Trustees has that statutory responsibility. The North Dakota Retirement and Investment Office administers the program, and the staff of this office, this is where we work, such as myself, Sarah, you probably worked with others such as Jamie Hike, Denise Langing Sargent, and Rochelle Smith. We all carry out those laws. Whoop. Okay, this is a little touchy here. Okay. So you as a TFFR active member fund your retirement. Funding comes from three sources. While you work, 11.75% of your TFFR eligible salary is going into your TFFR account. Some schools pay all or a portion of that 11.75%. The rest of the schools do not. It comes right out of your paycheck. So think about where you work, where you're teaching. Does your employer pay those contributions for you, or do you see it coming out of your paycheck? Another 12.75% are the employer contributions, which the employer pays. We use those contributions to invest, therefore generating investment income. This is the third source of funding. And to explain it another way, TFFR is a big pot of money consisting of employee contributions, employer contributions, and investment earnings, which is subject to the market, by the way. And you can see from this slide that investment income is a major part of the TFFR pool of money. And I'm going to go over your personal TFFR account value in just a bit. Okay, so right now let's talk about membership. North Dakota state law states that if you have a North Dakota teaching license and you are under contract with a TFFR employer and you're performing the duties of a teacher, you are required to be a member of TFFR. Some examples of TFFR employers are all North Dakota K-12 public schools. There are 5 state agencies that participate in TFFR. There are special ed units, regional education associations, and there's even some county superintendents that report to TFFR. There are 3 types of members. Up until 2008, there was only one group of members. So the 2008 legislation created, actually it's 2011 legislation created another tier of membership. So if you were not already an active teacher in the plan on July 1st, 2008, then you became a tier 2 member. So if you joined TFFR on or after July 1st, 2008, you were a tier 2 member. So we have a tier 1 and tier 2 in 2008. It was 2 groups of membership. In 2013, legislation split the tier 1 group into tier 1 grandfathered and tier 1 non-grandfathered. In order to be in the tier 1 grandfathered group on 2013, you would have had to have been within 10 years of normal or full retirement. So we have 3 tiers of benefits, tier 1 grandfathered, tier 1 non-grandfathered, and tier 2. There is an exemption to that requirement of participating in TFFR if there is a 20-year military retiree and they became, they start teaching in a K-12 public school or is employed by some other employer of TFFR. That 20-year military retiree can choose to be exempt from TFFR. It's a one-time selection, however. Okay, well, let's talk about salary. So once your employer determines you are required to be a member, they can start reporting your salary and pay contributions to TFFR on your behalf, which all of you, I'm sure, are doing right now. And why is this important? Well, what is eligible TFFR salary? And again, why is this important? Because it's part of your retirement formula calculation. If you get paid a salary for any teaching, supervising, administration, or extracurricular duties, that salary should be reported to TFFR. And it is important because salary is used in the calculation of your retirement benefits. Also, keep in mind that any salary deferral or deductions for 403B tax sheltered annuities or 125 flexible spending accounts, that should also be included in your TFFR salary. So for example, if you have a $60,000 salary or contract and you defer $5,000 of that to a 403B tax sheltered annuity, the full 60,000 should be reported to TFFR. However, 55,000 will be reported for federal income tax and Social Security. Any questions so far, Sarah?
No questions so far, Denise.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your account values. So once contributions are paid on your behalf, you have a TFFR individual account. As we mentioned earlier, TFFR is a big pot of money consisting of contributions and investment earnings. Part of that big pot is your own TFFR account. Your account value is made up of your employee contributions, which again is 11.75% of your salary plus 6% interest. This 6% interest rate hasn't changed for over 40 years, by the way. Again, the TFFR fund as a whole is subject to market changes. Your individual account is not. And why does this matter? Well, because your account value is what is paid out to you if you wish to refund when you stop teaching, or in the event you pass away before retirement and your beneficiary chooses to take the refund. So it does matter because it is your money. Speaking of beneficiaries, you may name the following as beneficiaries. Your spouse as the only primary beneficiary unless the spouse signs off on a form. So again, North Dakota state law states that your spouse is required to be your primary beneficiary unless that spouse signs off. If you're not married or if you have written spousal consent, any person, organization, church, or charity or estate can be your beneficiary. And a couple of things to remember. If you name more than one primary beneficiary, they are not eligible for that lifetime monthly annuity, whether you go through retirement or whether you pass away before you retire. So again, keep in mind that if you have one primary beneficiary and you pass away, that beneficiary would be eligible for that monthly benefit. We're going to talk a little bit more about survivor benefits a little later on, but if you have, again, if you have more than one primary beneficiary, then they are not eligible for that lifetime benefit. You can name contingent beneficiaries, although you're not required to. Contingent beneficiaries, it's the second tier of beneficiaries. So in other words, if you have your spouse or just one other person as the primary beneficiary and you both pass away, before retirement, then your contingent beneficiaries would be able to get your account. This next slide is not really a happy thing to talk about, but it is something you need to know, and that is your TFFR account is considered a marital asset and is subject to division in a divorce situation. Division of TFFR does require a QDRO, which stands for Qualified Domestic Relations Order, which is drawn up by an attorney and has to be approved by the TFFR board before it is signed by the judge. Some other things to keep in mind, the alternate payee or the former or soon-to-be ex-spouse can only receive a lump sum if you, as the member, elects to refund. The alternate payee receives a lifetime monthly benefit based on your accrued benefit at the time of divorce. And of course, your benefit then would be actuarially reduced. So if you should be going through a divorce, or if you know of somebody going through a divorce, please make sure and give us a call and we can give you all the details. Okay, well, let's talk about service credit. So I mentioned earlier that a lifetime monthly benefit is based on a formula, not the account value. The formula considers your high salaries, which we just kind of went over. We talked a little bit about salaries, the amount of service credit you have on record with TFFR at the time of retirement. So again, the retirement formula is based on salaries and service credit. You earn service credit when you are compensated for the hours you work performing the duties of a teacher, administrator, supervisor, and also extracurricular. 700 hours, or I should say 700 compensated hours equals 1 full year of service credit. And to put that into perspective, 700 hours is about half time for a 9-month teacher. So if you think about it, if you're a full-time 9-month teacher, you work about 1,400 hours, give or take, and that's what you're paid for. Obviously, teachers work a lot more than that, but if you work 700 hours between between July 1st to June 30th of the next year, then you will receive a full year of service credit. If it's less than 700 hours, which we do have some part-time teachers out there, the service credit is granted in proportion of the 700 hours. You can also purchase service credit. You do have to be an active teacher to purchase. You do have to be licensed and under contract. The cost is determined by an actuarial equivalent calculation, which does consider your salary, service credit, and how close you are to full retirement. You can purchase service credit in a lump sum, or you can make payments spread out over 5 years, or up to 5 years. And we will accept other eligible retirement plans as a rollover. We do have dual membership with North Dakota Public Employees Retirement System. So if you do have any service credit over at PERS, we will use that service for vesting and full retirement eligibility, just not in the calculation of the retirement benefit.
Denise,
yes.
sorry.
Yes,
We did have one question in the chat about purchasing service credit, and we do not currently have a video on this subject. But if people are interested in, and Denise is going over some of the basics here, but there's a step-by-step guidance in my TFFR once you get logged into your account. If you click on the help button in your account and search for service credit, you can get step-by-step guidance for getting an estimate on what that purchase would cost.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So yes, this slide goes over the types of service credit you may purchase. If you have taken any refunds from TFFR in the past, you can purchase any of those refunds that you've previously taken. We're going to talk about airtime in a bit. You can also purchase out-of-state teaching. So if you've taught in Minnesota, South Dakota, and now you're teaching in North Dakota, you can purchase it as long as you take your money out of those systems. Now you can roll the money into North Dakota teacher retirement. If you don't take the money out of that system, and let's say we do allow you to purchase that out-of-state teaching, then that would be considered double dipping, and you can't do that. So So you can purchase any out-of-state teaching, non-public school teaching, same thing. If there's a retirement account that you had with that non-public school, you would have to either refund that out or roll it to North Dakota TFFR, then you could purchase that. Any leave of absence that you may have had. You can also purchase legislative service if you've served in the legislative session, legislation here in North Dakota. You can purchase a military service, and that you can keep your money there. So you are able to purchase military service as well as have military service retirement, and any government agency teaching such as BIA. Let's talk a little bit about airtime. Airtime is just time that's not related to any prior teaching experience. And we do limit the amount of airtime you can purchase, and that's 5 service credits. So you can only purchase 5 service credits of airtime, whereas all the rest of the types of purchases you can purchase more. There is a limitation to the military service, and it's all based on your service. So any more questions about service, Sarah, or purchase
No,
service?
that was the only one. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So let's talk about, let's get to the good stuff and talk about the benefit formula. So we've talked about salary and service, which is all part of the benefit formula. Another big part of the formula of a defined benefit plan is a multiplier. Now, TFFR's multiplier is 2%, which is pretty high for a Social Security state. So in other words, when you are eligible to retire and when you do decide to start your TFFR benefit, you are also, most of you, I would suspect, are also eligible for Social Security benefits as well. There are some states that do not pay into Social Security and they can't get both, but in North Dakota, you do. There could be a few schools or a few employers left that do not pay into Social Security. So you do have to keep that in mind, but for the most part, most of you are eligible for Social Security as well as TFFR. So that's good. So the benefit formula for TFFR is your final average salary. That's that FAS there. Final average salary is the high 3 salaries for the tier 1 group and the high 5 salaries for the tier 2 group. Times of service credit you have on record or on file with TFFR at the time of retirement. That includes any earned service plus any purchased service times the 2% multiplier, and that'll give you your single life annuity. We're going to talk a little bit more about some other options in the next slide. So with the passing of that 2% multiplier in 2001, by the way, that's when we got the 2% multiplier in. And if you have 30 years of service, your TFFR benefit will replace 60% of your final average salary. And I want you to think about where the other 40% will come from. It may come from Social Security, savings, other investments, or retirement accounts such as IRAs or 403Bs, things like that. Okay, so when you retire, you have all of these benefit payment options to choose from. The first one, there's the refund of account value. So when you stop teaching, you do have the option to refund your account value, which again is your contributions, or I should say the employee's contribution plus the 6% interest. Even if you have 30 years of service credit and you refund your account, you do not get the employer contribution that has been paid on your behalf. So again, if you take a refund of your account value when you stop teaching, you will receive the employee contributions plus the 6% interest. The next 5 options provide a lifetime monthly benefit to you as the member. So no matter what option you select at retirement, you will receive a monthly benefit for life. However, they are all different amounts to you because they provide different levels of protection to your beneficiaries. All optional plans are derived from the benefit formula and an actuarial reduction calculation. In other words, If you pick anything other than the single life annuity, those amounts are going to be actuarially reduced, called a benefit option reduction factor. So the single life annuity amount is payable to you for life. It's the highest amount to you. It's your final average salary times the service credit times the 2% multiplier. While there is no monthly benefit for your beneficiary, should you pass away before receiving the full account value at the time of retirement, your beneficiary will receive a lump sum payment of the balance. So when you retire, your account value freezes. It doesn't earn any more interest. And if you pick the single life annuity, actually, if you pick whatever option you pick, we start pulling that monthly benefit from your account value. Under the single life, oh, and by the way, the account value typically will deplete in about 5 years, 4, 5, 6 years. But again, you receive a monthly benefit for life. So it's not based on that account value. But once your account value has depleted under the single life annuity, if you were to pass away after it's been depleted, then your beneficiary would get nothing. But if you passed away before your account value has been depleted, they would receive a lump sum payment of the balance. The 100% joint survivor is actuarially reduced. So it's that benefit option reduction factor. It's reduced based on your age and your beneficiary's age. At your death, your beneficiary receives 100% of the monthly benefit that you are receiving for the rest of their life. So again, it's a lifetime benefit to you, and upon your death, your beneficiary will receive the same amount you are getting for the rest of their life. If the beneficiary passes away first, your monthly benefit reverts or pops back up to the higher single life annuity. The 100% joint survivor does require one beneficiary, one primary beneficiary. You can name contingent beneficiaries, but you do have to have one primary beneficiary. If it's your spouse, that spouse can be any age, even if the spouse is 20 years younger, you can select 100% joint survivor with a spouse. If it's not your spouse, that beneficiary has to be within 10 years of your age. The 50% joint survivor works a lot like the 100% joint survivor. So it's actuarially reduced based on your age and your beneficiary's age. At your death, the beneficiary receives 50% or half of the monthly benefit that you are getting for the rest of their life. So again, a lifetime benefit to the beneficiary. If your beneficiary passes away first, your monthly benefit will revert back to the single life annuity or pops back up to that single life annuity. Again, this option requires one primary beneficiary. However, the 50% joint survivor can be used with a beneficiary of any age. The 10-year term certain and life annuity is again actuarially reduced based on your age, and it's not based on any beneficiary's age. That's the difference between the term certain and the joint survivors. But it is payable to you for life, just like all the other options. If you pass away within 10 years of your retirement date, then your beneficiary or beneficiaries, because now you can name multiple beneficiaries with the term certain in life, they will continue to receive the monthly benefit equal of the same amount until the end of the 10-year period. And again, the 20-year term certain in life works a lot like the 10-year term certain in life, where it's actuarially reduced based on your age and is payable to you for life. If you pass away within 20 years of your retirement date, then your beneficiary or beneficiaries will continue to receive that same or the monthly benefit split between them if you have multiple beneficiaries until the end of the 20-year period. We also provide a partial lump sum option, or we do have an acronym, PLSO, so the partial lump sum option. Members eligible for normal retirement may receive a lump sum cash payment in exchange for an actuarially reduced benefit. So it's about a 10% reduction from that single life annuity. The lump sum payment equals 12 times the amount of the single life annuity and is payable at the time of the monthly retirement annuity begins. In other words, you can receive a lump sum payment of about a year's worth of retirement. We can pay that to you in a lump sum, comes right out of your account value. It is taxable to you because most of your retirement account is pre-tax or tax deferred. You are eligible to roll that partial lump sum over to other eligible retirement accounts. If you take it in cash, then of course we have to withhold the 20%. But then you are also eligible to take any of those other options. So if you do choose a partial lump sum, you can choose it along with the single life annuity, any of the joint survivors, and the term certain and lives. So again, just keep in mind, if you name more than one beneficiary, the joint survivor options are not available for retirement. And I should say, it's not available for retirement, disability, or survivor benefits, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And if the 100% joint survivor plan is selected and the beneficiary is not the spouse, the beneficiary must be within 10 years of your age. So as you can see from this slide, the most common option by far is the 100% joint survivor option, followed by the single life annuity, 50% joint survivor, and then the 20 and the 10-year term certain life. We don't have it up here. Oh, that slide looks a little funny. But 100% joint survivor is the most common, followed by the single life annuity. Not very many people select the partial lump sum. We probably have anywhere between 10 and 20 retirees out of about 300 retirees every year select the partial lump sum. Any questions on the options, Sarah?
We do not have any questions right now, but just a reminder that if you do have questions, you can use the Q&A feature and we will address those when our speakers pause.
Okay, this next slide, I actually like this next slide because it compares all 3 tiers of benefits and the benefit structure. There are a couple things that I'd like you to know on this slide because we haven't talked about some of these things. In a defined benefit plan, to be vested means that you're eligible for that monthly retirement benefit at some point. For Tier 1 members, you need to have 3 years, and for Tier 2 members, you need 5 years. Also, for those of you who do not know what the rule of 85 or the rule of 90 refers to, if your age plus the amount of service credit you have with TFFR at the time of retirement equal 85 or 90, you can retire with full benefits. So, in other words, if you're 60 years old and you have 30 years of service credit, you have the rule of 90. And it depends on what tier you fall under as it relates to the rule of 85 and the rule of 90. And if you haven't had a reason to log into your My TFFR self-service online account, now is the time to do so. Make sure you know which tier you fall under. Make sure that we have the correct information on your account. So again, on this slide, if you're a Tier 1 member, vesting is 3 years. If you're a Tier 2 member, you do have to have 5 years of service credit in order to be eligible for that monthly retirement benefit. We talk about full or normal retirement eligibility. That's that first section, unreduced. So your retirement is unreduced. There is no early retirement factor or reduction factor on an unreduced or a normal retirement. If you're a Tier 1 grandfathered, you don't have to be any minimum, there is no minimum age. As long as your service credit and your age equals 85 or higher, you're eligible for full retirement. If you turn 65 before the rule of 85, of course, that's also considered normal retirement. Again, under a or I should say also under a tier 1 grandfathered, if you are age 55 and you have at least 3 years of service credit, you're eligible for that retirement benefit. It's just going to be reduced by 6% if you don't meet that rule of 85 or age 65. So it's a 6% reduction factor. Under a tier 1 non-grandfathered member, again, you have to be vested with 3 years of service. The difference between the tier 1 non-grandfathered and the tier 1 grandfathered is if you are a tier 1 non-grandfathered, you do have to be minimum age 60 in order, and also have the rule of 90 in order to retire with full benefits or be age 65. Again, you can collect a retirement benefit at age 55, but the reduction factor is 8% for a tier 1 non-grandfathered. And again, at the bottom there, it talks about the formula. The final average salary for tier 1 grandfathered and tier 1 non-grandfathered considers the high 3 years. Tier 2 members, you need to have 5 years of service credit before you're vested and before you are eligible for a monthly retirement benefit. You have to be minimum age 60 and have the rule of 90, or reach age 65, whichever comes first. So again, tier 2 members, you have to meet that rule of 90, be minimum age 60, or be age 65, whichever comes first. You can collect a retirement benefit at age 55 with that 8% reduction factor, just like the tier 1 non-grandfathered. However, the difference between tier 2 and a tier 1, as far as the final average salary, we will consider 5 years, which does lower that final average salary just a bit. So this is a great slide to keep as a reference. Make sure you log into your account to see what tier you are if you do not know already, and then you can compare the benefit structure.
Denise?
Yes.
We have a question from Stephen. He's asking, does a person need to decide which option if you are pausing retirement, stay at 55 and waiting until 60 to draw, or can they wait until they start to draw to make that decision?
That's an excellent question. You don't decide the retirement option until right before you collect your retirement benefits. So you do not have to select an option. In fact, we don't let you, but there would be survivor benefits if in the event he or she should pass away. And we're going to talk about that in just a bit. So that's a good question. Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but TFFR does have disability benefits. To be eligible, you have to have 5 years of service credit, earned credit. Purchasing service credit does not make you eligible for disability benefits. So you do have to have 5 years of earned service credit. You have to be an active member when the disability occurs. You have to make application within 36 months of employment. You have to be determined that you are unable to perform the duties of a teacher by a medical professional. And it does have to be certified eligible by the TFFR Board of Trustees. In other words, it does have to be approved by the board. It must be total and last for at least 1 year. So we do not have short-term disability. It does have to last for at least a year. It can be temporary, but it must be total. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a permanent disability. So let's say that your disability lasts for 2 years and you get better and you can actually stop the disability benefits with TFFR, come back to teach, and then retire at some point later on. The disability formula is the final average salary depending on which tier you are times the service credit times the 2% multiplier. And of course, that equals the disability single life annuity. You do have all of those same options available to you for disability. So the same options for retirement and disability. There is no age reduction, however, like there is with the retirement benefit. We also provide survivor benefits, and so many people don't know this. I mean, that's a really good question that Stephen had, because if you stop teaching, no matter how old you are, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and you have service credit at TFFR and you're vested, we do provide survivor benefits, which is a huge benefit to members. So if you pass away before retirement, that would be considered survivor benefits. If you are a non-vested member at the time of passing, your beneficiary or beneficiaries must refund the account value. If you are a vested member, your beneficiary selects which option. So if you have one primary beneficiary, that primary beneficiary chooses to either take a refund of the account value or take that monthly benefit for life based on your service credit and salary at the time of death. If you have multiple beneficiaries as your primary beneficiary, then they can only take the refund of the account value split between them. And of course, if you pass away after retirement, it depends on which retirement option was selected at the time of retirement. So once you retire, TFFR allows you to return to teach under certain conditions. You must have a 1-month break from all TFFR employment or relationships. In other words, you do have to retire all of your positions with that employer. You have to be out for 1 month or 30 days, and then you can come back. So let's say you're a teacher and a coach. You do have to resign from all of those positions if you want to come back later the next school year and teach. So you must have a 1-month break from all TFFR employment or relationships. Returning before that 1-month break, or if you even sign a contract before that, you might have to repay all of those benefits back to TFFR. You do have to notify our office each year you return to TFFR covered employment to avoid losing that 1 month of benefits. Your employer will contact us through the online enrollment process, through the employer portal, however, and that will be required each year. Keep in mind that this slide is not intended to give the details or procedures of the retirement or of the Return to Teach program, but instead just general requirements and information. Same with this next slide. It's not very detailed. It's just some general information. But if you do come back and utilize the retirement or the Return to Teach program, there are 3 options available to you. And we do have these employment limitations. And the first one is the general rule, which is an annual hour limit. So keep in mind that these are the maximum hours that you can work in a fiscal year based on the length of a contract. So if you retire and then you sit out the 30 days, you can come back and work in the school as a teacher, administrator, supervisor, and fall under this general rule. You can continue to collect your retirement benefits if you fall under the general rule. If you sign a 9-month contract, you can work up to 700 hours. If you sign a 10-month contract, you can work up to 800 hours. 11-month contract, 900 hours. That very first year, you cannot sign a 12-month contract because you do have to be out for the 30 days. And then after that, you can sign a 12-month contract and you can work up to 1,000 hours. Now, there are a lot of details concerning this general rule. For example, I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. If you go back to work with a TFFR employer and you are only maybe working as a in some extracurricular duties, so maybe as a coach, or you're doing some extracurricular music duties, that extracurricular does not apply towards that 700 hours. So you can do as much as of the extracurricular as you want. And so there are specific rules on what is included in that 700 hours. And we don't have time to go through all of that right now, but basically extracurricular, in-staff subbing, and professional development are not included in that 700 hours, or I should say are excluded. So you can come back and teach part-time under a 9-month contract, work up to 700 hours, which is about half time. But you also can have extracurricular contracts. You can do some professional development hours. That's not included in that 700 hours. You can also work as, and I should say, you can work as a sub, and you can sub as many hours as you'd like, as long as it's not a contracted sub. That's actually a very common question. And so, depending on the length of the contract, depends on the hours that you are allowed to work. The next option is exception A, critical shortage area. TFFR allows you to go back to work full-time in a critical shortage area and continue receiving your retirement benefits. You do have to be out for a full year. Again, it's not on this slide. So if you are interested in learning more about the Return to Teach program, there are counselors here. Jamie and Denise can help you. I can help you. You can look on our website. But in order to be eligible for the critical shortage area, you do have to be out for a full year. And it does have to be in a critical shortage area, which is determined by the ESPB, which is the Education Standards and Practices Board. All areas this year, I believe, are critical shortage, except for administration. So again, if you want to come back and work full-time in a critical shortage area and continue to receive your retirement benefits, you do have to be out for a full year. And you can't even do part-time work in that full year. The third option is exception B, benefit suspension and recalculation. So let's say you retire and you come back as an administrator, which is not critical shortage, and you want to work full-time. Well, then you will have to suspend your benefit, TFFR benefit, and then upon re-retirement, your retirement then would be recalculated. So that's just a quick overview on working after retirement.